Hey, BillO'Reilly.com Premier members, welcome to the No Spin News, Tuesday, January 29th, 2019. Take your country back. We have a special report tonight on President Trump's desire to be reelected. Can that happen at this point in history? You can have 2 points of view on it. I think you'll find the discussion very illuminating. First, we'll get into the acting attorney general saying he thinks that the Mueller report is close to being released. Matthew Whitaker, who's not going to be in the job very much longer because Mr. Barr will be put up for a vote shortly, and he'll be the attorney general. I think he'll be confirmed. But anyway, Matthew Whitaker is filling in, and he says, look, Mueller might be close. Now, you figured that Whitaker would know, right? But who knows? So here's what I think is going to happen. I don't think President Trump's going to be accused of a crime. If he were going to be accused, Mueller would have had to formally ask him to appear face to face. That did not happen. 2, Mueller is going to charge collusion with Russia on a low level of the Trump campaign. Certain people, whether they knew that they were doing or not, but certain people were doing stuff with the Russians that they shouldn't have been doing. Number 3, the Russian interference was massive and major, and that Putin directed it, all right, to try to disrupt our election. And number 4, that once this report is out, the cables will deal with it for 4 or 5 days, and it'll disappear. It's not going to have much of an impact in 2020. Those are all my predictions based upon that I'm pretty astute. Most of my predictions come true. However, I could be wrong. Now, Donald Trump. He's going to deliver the State of the Union next Tuesday. We'll have Monday and Tuesday coverage of that, of course, and then Wednesday reaction. Right now, his favorability rating, job performance, and personal approval, it's all over the place. You can't really believe the polls. It's one day here, one day there. I'll give you some numbers, but I don't particularly believe them. ABC News is the worst on a president. It has his job approval at 37%, 58% disapprove. NBC, same time frame, has his job approval at 43%, 6 points higher than ABC. Negative job approval, 54, 5 points lower. Interestingly enough, when NBC, Wall Street Journal asked, do you have positive or negative feelings about President Trump? 48% have positive, 52 negative. That's a lot closer than I thought it was going to be. Now, Rasmussen does a daily tracking poll. Rasmussen has 45% of likely U.S. voters approve President Trump's job performance, 54% disapprove. That's in line with the NBC numbers. I think 45% of Americans would vote for Donald Trump today. That's my feeling. So that's not going to put him back into office. He's going to have to win over about 5%. But that's not far away. And the pounding he's taking in the media, I think is pretty extraordinary that Trump is holding at the level he's holding at. Okay, one other interesting situation before we get to our guests, who I'm very pleased to have, by the way. There was an NBC News poll on Trump, but they also asked likely voters, do you approve of Nancy Pelosi's job? 28% say approve of the speaker. 28. Woo. 47% disapprove. Now, that shows you that most people aren't paying attention because that number is far short of 100%. However, Nancy Pelosi, the Democrats got to be careful because Americans like her, and she's going to be the face of the Democratic Party until they get a nominee, which I continue to believe will be Joe Biden. And Biden yesterday made some other remarks that he's closer than ever to making a decision. If you're not going to do it, you just say, I'm not going to do it. All right? So Biden's going to do it. I think he's going to get it. Unless, that's a long shot because there's a lot of things that could happen. But I'm a very linear thinking guy. So I say, Joe Biden, yeah, not crazy left, can peel off independent voters. You know, some people are remembering fondly the Obama years, and then he puts Kamala Harris or somebody like that on the 2 spot, gets the radical lefts all excited. You see? That could be wrong. All right, let's bring in Jenna Ellis, first of all. She is one of our favorite guests. She's the Director of Public Policy for the James Dobson Family Institute. It's a conservative crew. All right, so Donald Trump, I have him at 45% right now. Not enough to win re-election. What do you say?
Yeah, well, I would agree with you that the polls you can't trust, and we certainly learned that in 2016. But if conservative evangelical Christians, and particularly women and millennials, of which I'm part of that demographic, do show up to vote and we vote our values, then I think that we will definitely see a Donald Trump victory again in 2020, simply because the progressive liberal left are focusing and emphasizing issues like what Kamala Harris was talking about this week, like what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez even was talking about. And they are so pro-abortion, which women and millennials, and particularly the conservative base, are going to care about. So I think that the two main issues going into 2020 are definitely going to be abortion and the Supreme Court.
Okay, I disagree with you. I think the main issue is going to be the economy, where Trump is strong. And the secondary issue is going to be Trump himself.
And I think that those are going to be issues, certainly, but for specifically women and millennials, I think that the focus and the emphasis on abortion, sanctity of human life, and even what we saw.
The abortion atrocity here in New York State, and that's what it is. And we're going to get to that after we talk about politics. We're going to get into Andrew Cuomo, the Catholic Church, and the unbelievable abortion law that they passed here. It didn't get a lot of traction, Jenna, across the country. You know, people weren't outraged by it. I don't think even people even know about it. You could make it an issue, but Donald Trump's not going to make abortion an issue in the presidential campaign. He's not.
Well, I think he did with Hillary, for sure. And so depending on, I mean, if you're right and Joe Biden is the nominee, then that may take a different turn. But if someone like Kamala Harris or someone very far left.
She's not going to get it. I could be wrong on Harris. I mean, the far left press is pushing her like crazy. I said this yesterday. Poor Kirsten Gillibrand, right? Kirsten Gillibrand
Yes.
and Kamala Harris are the same person. They have no difference in their far left progressive views. But Gillibrand gets no publicity, and Harris gets unbelievable town hall on CNN, everybody bowing down. And it's about, she checked the box on the minority. Yeah,
Absolutely. It's the progressive
woman,
left is
but
all
not a
about
minority
identity
woman.
politics.
Yeah, and that's why that happened. Final question for you. The numbers of evangelical Christians and millennial women are really not overwhelming in this country as far as the raw vote is concerned. So you got to look at places like Pennsylvania and Michigan, Wisconsin that President Trump won and say, does he have enough juice to go back there and win again? And I don't know whether the social issues are going to put him over the top in those states. And it's all about electoral votes.
It is. Thankfully, it's still about electoral votes, even though a lot of states are trying to change that unconstitutionally. But if we look at even the polling data from the 2018 midterms, even though there were states, of course, and of course the GOP lost the House, if you look at the voting from the conservative base, that was enough for key Senate races, key states that are still red. And so I don't think that we can discount certainly the element of that and how important that is to the conservative base, even though certainly it doesn't comprise the whole. But if you look at the issues that the main GOP base is concerned about, Trump is going to get those votes because of the economy, because of the issues that you spoke of.
Votes. Just on the Supreme Court alone, he'll get those votes. It's just that the numbers of Republicans are going down, registered. The numbers of independents are going up. And that shows that his base is not going to be enough to put him over the top, in my opinion. Jenna, always a pleasure to talk with you. Thanks very much. And now I want to bring in Roger Fisk. He's in D.C. He's a Democratic strategist. He got a pretty good view of that party. Let's take my assessment of former Vice President Biden first. Do you see him as the front runner?
I would at the beginning. I think what he will go through is very similar to when you remember when Mitt Romney considered running for his third time. Everyone loves the idea of someone as a candidate right up until they become a candidate. You become a candidate or even get within flirting distance like former Governor Romney, and you can drop 15 points overnight.
But why would the Democratic Party not embrace Biden, who's known far beyond all the other candidates and who's got the attachment to Barack Obama? Why wouldn't the Democratic Party embrace him?
A couple reasons, and this is me analyzing this rather than my personal opinion. I haven't seen a lot of evidence that the Obama touch is transferable in many situations. Stacey Abrams, for example, in Georgia. And then the former vice president was not a particularly compelling candidate the other two times he ran. So yes, he's added his 8 years as vice president, but that doesn't change the fundamental DNA of the individual who has gone into Iowa and some of the early states before and not done that well. And I don't think at his age or my age that anyone is going to be fundamentally transformed. He's the same person he was when he ran in 08 and roughly the same person he was when he ran in 88.
I agree. And when you go into Iowa, you're going into radical left territory. New Hampshire, not so much. New Hampshire, more mainstream. But Iowa, very radical left territory, so you don't expect Vice President Biden to do that well up against the socialist cadre that will be there. Out of the far left progressive candidates, who do you feel at this point in history is the strongest?
I think, well, of the ones that we know so far, and we're waiting for the cowboy boot of Betto to drop, who I think would be transformative in terms of the landscape right now. I'm not particularly grabbed by anyone, and I think we need to see another 4 or 5 people jump in until we get a full sense of the texture of this race. To jump ahead and answer your next question, I right now would be banking on President Trump to be reelected, should he wish to be. There's a part of me that's starting to think that the competitive side of him, of course, wants to be reelected, and there's another part of him that maybe wants to go back to that life that he had before all the demands of this.
I can tell you, trust me on this, Roger, he's going to run for reelection unless, something comes up that he's in serious trouble, but he wants it again. When you say that right now nobody jumps out at you, but Betto O'Rourke, who the people don't know. I mean, they know him in Texas, but they don't really know him. Why would he, as a white man, you know what the stigma is on the white men now? Why would he overwhelm somebody like Kamala Harris, who, as I said, checks off all the PC boxes?
Well, the interesting thing about both Senator Harris and former Congressman O'Rourke is how much their candidacies will impact the calendar. And there's always going to be the emphasis on Iowa and New Hampshire, but the fact that Texas and California are going to be waiting, 6 and 8 Tuesdays into the contest make that all very interesting.
Yeah,
I fundamentally think, to answer your specific question, that we saw a whole cycle of Betto running. So in a sense, we kind of have seen a full lap around the track. We've seen him post incredibly impressive fundraising numbers. We've seen him create a culture around his candidacy that he was able to maintain even while he grew. He was able to kind of navigate between national name recognition and staying intensely focused on Texas. So I think it's just it's more information to glean an impression from. That's mainly why I have a different answer for Betto than I do for Senator Harris.
I watched a recent interview with Mr. O'Rourke, who I do not know, I've never spoke to. He did not come across very well, and I would have destroyed him. The interviewer that he was talking to was kind to him. I would have just put him in a puddle. He didn't have the answers to very interesting questions that have to be answered. Now, you said something interesting that you think that Donald Trump has a good chance to be reelected. Now, as a Democrat, and you know that your party loathes him, why do you think he has a good chance to be reelected?
Well, first and foremost, he, and I'll say this kindly, he has an uncanny ability to suck all the oxygen out of the room and suck all the media oxygen out of the national conversation. So just by the fact that there's one of him and 14, 15, 16, 17 other folks means that, just that math allows him to have a much greater say in the national conversation.
Now, I think that's a very astute comment you just made, because the balkanization of the Democratic Party is going to hurt them. But obviously, they're going to have to come to some kind of consensus, which is why I think Biden is going to get it. Because all the other candidates, Harris will win California, O'Rourke will win Texas, Gillibrand may win New York. I mean, they're all going to play well in their home fields, but there's nobody going to be topping out. And then it'll be interesting to see how they attack each other if they do that, because they're all pretty much the same. And then you got Bernie Sanders, who's going to be crotchety out there. So it's going to be very entertaining. And then Trump's the big winner as everybody starts to. But I do believe there's going to be a primary challenge to Donald Trump, but it's not going to be that serious. Final question.
And if I may,
go ahead.
Okay.
No,
well,
go ahead.
I was going to say the historical parallel that I've been using is 1995, and as you well remember, the government shutdown, a newly assertive speaker, and I think there were a couple mistakes that the Republicans made in the cycle of 1996. One of which was nominating someone who was a generation older than the incumbent. And so when I look at that parallel and I extrapolate it forward, I think one of the keys is that the Democratic nominee is a generation younger than the incumbent.
Okay, but it's Trump. And Trump doesn't
Correct.
play like some doddering old guy. Biden's going to have trouble with that, but not Trump. Trump's going to be out there throwing those hand grenades all over the place.
Yeah, but I guess my point in that is that he has positioned himself more as a kind of bridge to a nostalgic past than he is a visionary for the future. And at least on my side of the aisle,
it's going to be about the economy and the fear of socialism. That's what they're going to run on. That's what they're going to run on.
Or I like to summarize it as yesterday versus tomorrow, and I think he's positioned himself as the champion of yesterday. So the question is who can define tomorrow?
Who's Tomorrowland? All right, Roger.
Exactly.
Very good. I really appreciate it. Very, very good analysis, both of you, Jenna and Roger. Thank you once again. Okay, let's turn over to this abortion situation. Now, this isn't about abortion as much as it is about the changing structure of American thought. So, it used to be that partial birth abortion, late-term abortion, was anathema to most Americans because they believed that there comes a point where the fetus, the unborn child, can live on its own. And that point, because of medical science, has gone down. So you're really destroying a person if the person can live outside the womb of the mother. It's just the way it is. Now, there are people who will tell you that life doesn't begin until the baby comes out of the womb, but they don't know. Nobody knows that. There's human DNA on conception. So Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York, for years buried the most radical abortion law in the nation. By that I mean he didn't put it up, because Republicans held part of the legislature here in New York, and he knew he wasn't going to get it passed. Plus, he's a Catholic. And you can't rationalize this. If you believe in partial birth abortion, or you're attempting to make that legal, and this law in New York goes far beyond that. If a doctor botches an abortion, births the baby, and then puts a dagger in its neck, that doctor cannot be prosecuted for a crime in New York State under this new law. And that's happened. That has happened. And you can have an abortion in the state of New York for any reason up until you birth. So 2 days before you're due, the woman could say, I really don't want this baby. And it's affecting my mental health. It's making me depressed. And the doctor will, and that baby's done. So anyway, people call it infanticide, people call it a murder, whatever. It used to be in America that attitude infanticide, murder, you can't do this, it's barbaric, Nazi stuff, you can't do it, was the prevalent attitude. And it would be outrage over this law in New York. Not now. Press loves it. Cuomo got a standing ovation when he announced it. And the opponents of the law cannot seem to summon the outrage necessary. Here's Cardinal Dolan.
The fact that he's a Catholic, as far as I'm concerned, has nothing to do with it. Any thinking human being that would want a baby, allow a baby to be aborted right up to the moment of birth, any thinking, thoughtful, considerate human being that would think that a baby could be, the abortion procedure could go forward without proper medical care, as now doctors don't have to be there. Anybody that thinks that a baby who survives the gruesome abortion procedure and that a doctor is no longer required to attempt to save that baby's life, you don't have to be a Catholic to abhor those kind of things.
The Catholic Church, Cardinal, stands against abortion, and here is the most prominent Catholic in the state of New York, and he's saying, oh, this is a good thing.
We have a governor that brags about it. We have a governor that uses his dissent from church teaching as applause lines.
In fact,
we have a governor that takes quotes from Pope Francis out of context to draw an artificial cleavage between the bishops of New York and the Holy Father himself.
What about denying him communion?
Well, look, you're making me, I don't rarely get restless, but I am. That's kind of a pastoral issue that I think one has to talk to him about, and I think proper people have. And I'd be uncomfortable going into that rather spiritual and pastoral.
Okay. The bottom line is publicly no action has been taken against Governor Andrew Cuomo by the Catholic Church. The Pope has not even said anything about it. Not issued any statement at all. Now, you'll remember the Pope talks about global warming. Pope talks about the intrusion of these things on our lives. Talks about a lot of stuff. Not here. Cardinal Dolan basically saying, I'm going to keep this private between Cuomo and the clergy. Now, I understand the Catholic Church has lost all moral authority in America. It has. Because of the scandals, the children. The church has no moral authority in America at all. And the Pope has lost a lot of moral authority in this country and in Western Europe. I got it. But this issue is a human rights issue. That's what this is. It's not a theological issue, except for people who believe in Christianity. For Christians, it absolutely is theological. But for everybody, this is human rights. For you to say that a fetus, an unborn baby, is not human, you can't say that with any certainty. You don't know. And when you don't know, you err on the side of protection. This has nothing to do with reproductive rights. You can get an abortion. It's legal in this country. But this law is so extreme and so troubling, and the Catholic Church has got no answer and won't fight it to the extent that it should. All right. Santa Barbara City College, 2-year place out in a very nice town in California, basically says now the Pledge of Allegiance not allowed on campus. So the board of directors, President Robert Mueller, says pledging the allegiance to the American flag is, quote, steeped in expressions of nativism and white nationalism, unquote. So you can't do it. You know, I'm telling you, this is a war. But our side, my side, is in fighting it. They're afraid because the national press is on the other side, the progressive side, and will slime and hurt you just as they did to me if you go up against them. But I'm still fighting a war because it is a war. Take a quick break. Be back with a very wild mail segment in a moment.
The American economy is booming. Just look at the increases in the stock market over the last 2 years. not to mention unemployment at a record low. But nobody really knows what's around the corner. This uncertainty is why so many Americans choose to protect a portion of their financial portfolio with gold and silver. Precious metals have not only acted as a hedge against inflation, but may also help stabilize your IRA from unforeseen fluctuations in the market. The company I recommend you talk with is the Hartford Gold Group. They can help you put physical gold and/or silver in your IRA so you're in complete control. The Hartford Gold Group has delivered more than $150 million in gold and silver to customers. They're family owned, have an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, and have hundreds of 5-star reviews online. Right now, viewers of the No Spin News will receive a free historic silver mercury dime. Just go to www.hartfordgoldgroup.com/no spin. That's hartfordgoldgroup.com/no spin, or give them a call. 866-484-0517, 866-484-0517. Tell them O'Reilly sent you to get that free gift.
And finally tonight, the mail. On the message boards, Joanne, I am fed up with this political correctness. The far left is terrorizing those who voice their opinion on the simplest, most basic issues. Tom Brokaw has the right to voice his opinion. He didn't threaten anyone. This happens over and over. Stop apologizing. Do you agree, Bill? Well, I don't have much sympathy for Brokaw. As I said in my column, and I hope everybody reads that column, all right, Bad Moon Rising, Brokaw is getting karma. He's part of the PC cadre, and now they've turned on him. But yeah, I mean, freedom of speech in this country now, oh boy. Malcolm Rogers, Corpus Christi, Texas. To start, I'm an extreme proponent of the wall. However, your comments tonight and other nights comparing our walls to those in East Berlin and Israel doesn't seem totally accurate, at least to me. As you said, those walls are supported with deadly force, and that is my beef with your comparison. The wall will benefit this country many times more than its cost, but not to the extreme that you occasionally compare. It's true that the Israeli and German walls were backed up by armed guards, but so would the wall on the Mexican border. Border Patrol armed. But the most important thing about the wall here is that it would work, and the opponents say it would not. Barriers work if the barriers are built correctly. They make it very difficult to get over them, which is my point. And the Border Patrol, if it takes you 3 hours to cross that wall, more than likely you're going to be caught when you get across it. Stephen Hopp in Seattle, mail question, possible story to investigate. How does Mueller command the FBI resources to arrest Roger Stone in the manner that he did? Mueller had nothing to do with it. This was an FBI decision. All right? It was a Justice Department decision. Mueller works for the Justice Department. He can't call up and say, send guys with bazookas to get Roger Stone. It's the FBI chief and the Department of Homeland Security chief that allowed that raid. And who's in charge of them? The president. Come on. Joan Ruggiero, Westbrook, Connecticut. How's it possible that a Congress person can give endless interviews spewing lies? I'm referring to Ocasio-Cortez, who's a loon and out there saying things that have no basis in reality or truth, and there are no ramifications for her actions. She's not lying. The Congresswoman believes what she says. But she's certainly not versed in reality. What she says is impossible unless you have a totalitarian government. Now, maybe she wants that. But she's not lying. She's just putting forth an extreme view that has been roundly accepted by the media. It's just crazy. Wallace Ryland, Charlotte, North Carolina. In terms of your guest tonight in the deficit, you're both right, but it is emblematic of those trying to raise the issue. When is the American economy going to collapse under the strain of this debt? Nobody knows that. And I was trying to get a timeline from our guest yesterday, but it's not fair to him. It's so impossible to tell. You're going to have a $23 trillion debt by the time the 2020 election takes place. $23 trillion. But is the economy going to wobble under that? Nobody knows. But certainly it's dangerous. It's like the Titanic. There are icebergs. Okay? Now maybe the Titanic's not going to hit them, but maybe it will. They're there. Michael on a message board, Bill, since Trump's election, I've been saying that for him to truly succeed, he must lower the national debt and reverse the upward trend while in office. This is a great disappointment to me that he has not done that. He has to get the economy in a place where he's reelected, and that means no austerity the first term. That's exactly what Barack Obama did. Okay? Obama took over in a severe recession, spent, and Trump continued the spending to prop the economy up. Now, maybe if he's reelected, he'll look at it, but I don't know if that's a priority for him. Stuart Gans, Grapevine, Texas. Bill, great segment tonight on the debt and when it could send the USA into a depression. Please keep the conversation going. No other news service even mentions it, which is why you're with us, Stuart. I mean, we're covering the news in an honest way, stuff that's important to you. John, that was a great article that you posted from Victor Davis Hanson. Unfortunately, it will never get the coverage it deserves except from you. Okay, that was the best. Hanson wrote the best column on Covington I saw by far. It's posted on the website. Hope you all read it. And read my column, Bad Moon Rising. Very important column. John, here are my thoughts on genderless. There's no such thing. All right? Parents should teach their little girls to be proud of their femininity and their little boys to be proud of their masculinity. No need to confuse them. I'm right with you. Carrie Shriver, Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. Bill, thank you for the great work you and Martin Dugard do in writing the Killing series. Killing the SS and Killing the Rising Sun are two favorite books that you've written. I learned a lot from them. My father fought in World War II, just as your father did, and I'm curious what your thoughts are to what your father might have thought of these books. Like many World War II vets, my father didn't speak of his wartime experience. Did your father talk about it with you? Well, my father passed away before I began writing my books. I've had 15 #1 bestsellers. I think he would have liked that. All right. He did talk to me about his experience in World War II. He was in the occupation. He did not see combat. He was part of the occupying American force in Japan. And he did explain what happened to me. I think he would have loved the books because my father liked honest history, and that's what the books are. Thank you for reading them very much, Carrie. I appreciate it. All right. If you buy Killing the SS, we give you Killing Patton for $2. $2. Then you'll know everything about the European theater. You want to know Japan, Killing the Rising Sun. These books are really good. If you've already read them, get them for gifts. People will love you. Give them a gift. Somebody who does you a kindness. If you go on a Super Bowl party, take one of my books over and give it to them. If you buy a signed book, any signed book by me, you get a 3-month premium membership free, which you can give to somebody. And it helps us, helps you, everything else. Good word of the day when writing at BillO'Reilly.com. Do not be thewless, Thewless. Thewless, not clueless. We don't want you to be that either. Thewless, word of the day. All right, we'll be back tomorrow with more information that I hope you find edifying, another word of the day, and we'll see you then.